Dr. Joel Fuhrman, Dr. Kahn, and Dr. Michael Greger are all very important people to me and the world. Doctors like these have helped countless people embrace a healthier lifestyle that in turn saves millions of animals. I really don't want to create videos like this. I'm more interested in positive content, and you can see this throughout my channels. But I felt like someone needed to do something to make it more clear what is actually going on here. In this video, you'll see how Jeff Nelson maliciously cherry-picks information to paint a false picture of Dr. Joel Fuhrman and accuse him of using a fake testimonial. We'll look closer at what Nelson is quoting and read just a little further to see how Nelson's interpretation is flawed. Scott may have only detoxed for 5 out of the 6 weeks, but beyond that, his success appears to have been very influenced by Fuhrman's nutritarian diet. 3 years later, he describes what he is eating, which is virtually identical to Fuhrman's diet. And 2 and 3 years after that, Scott signed releases allowing Fuhrman to use his testimonial in both Fuhrman's book and elsewhere. Dr. Joel Fuhrman has no problem finding testimonials. He has hundreds of them to pull from. If any of these people decide at any time that they want to change their story, well, that's most likely beyond the control of Fuhrman. What Nelson ideally would do, if he has questions, is approach these doctors via Q&A, their forum, or just try to contact them directly. But instead, he's creating misleading, drama-laden videos with clickbait titles, presumably for nothing more than shallow views. This is gravely detrimental in 2 ways. 1, it creates confusion and doubt about plant-based eating, veganism, and these doctors who are helping people change their lives for the best. It's also creating unnecessary stress for these doctors who are having to stop helping others so they can defend themselves in their already overwhelmingly busy schedule. As a result, Nelson is stifling the vegan movement, and he's hurting the people who would otherwise have been helped, and more animals are being killed as a consequence. Apparently, getting views at the expense of people's health and the animals is more important to Jeff Nelson. I urge you to unsubscribe from his channel and instead show your support by subscribing to more positive channels like Dr. Fuhrman's, Dr. Kahn, Dr. Greger's Nutrition Facts, Happy Healthy Vegan, Mike the Vegan, Plant-Based Science London, and Plant-Based News. I may put up 1 or 2 more videos exposing Nelson very soon, so please bear with me until we can get through this. And then I plan on resuming full throttle with more positive content that you usually see here. I am very excited about getting past this and into some really great things. Here we go.
Hi there, Jeff Nelson of VegSource. In my video, I described a fake weight loss testimonial that Dr. Fuhrman has been using for about 11 years. The subject of this testimonial was a man named Scott Cutchell, who Dr. Fuhrman said lost 331 pounds following a nutritarian diet.
We're 23 seconds in and you're already being misleading. Nowhere on what you're showing us does it say that he lost 331 pounds following a nutritarian diet. I see where it says he lost 331 pounds, but that's outside the quotes. And then I see later on where it says that he decided to change his approach to eating by following Dr. Fuhrman's high nutrient plan. And if you look a little further down, you can see where it says Scott jumped right into Dr. Fuhrman's plan for nutritional excellence, which we all know he did. He did the cleansing for 5 out of the 6 weeks.
In my video, I also discussed how Dr. Fuhrman grossly misrepresents his weight loss research.
You mean the research that the journal audited and determined was completely appropriate?
However, this quote is set up in a way to make the reader believe that Scott started bicycling after he lost the weight, rather than in order to lose the weight.
What you're saying might be true if the reader didn't read the rest of the paragraph. Did you read the rest of the paragraph? Because it clearly says that he rode approximately 1,400 miles the first year, and last year he rode 19,700 miles. And then it goes on to say, and this year, and probably something about how many miles he rode that year as well. But you're just skipping right past that as if that was never said. Maybe that's why you started the video at the top and scrolled down as a distraction so we wouldn't see that, which is very misleading. And that's the very thing you're accusing him of doing, yet you're doing it.
So this is misleading and, of course, appears to be another FTC guideline guideline violation, not to share all that Scott did to get his great results.
Is what you did FTC violation, not to mention all that was said and only hyper-focus on part of it and then presumptuously make up malintentions?
The second document Dr. Fuhrman showed is another release from 2011 signed by Scott for use in videos and photos that Dr. Fuhrman might use for promotional purposes.
This was 6 years after all this started. If Scott had a problem with it, he shouldn't have signed this paper. If Scott did not follow the nutritarian diet or even anything remotely similar to that for 6 years, as you seem to be claiming, then why would he sign this 6 years later? Furthermore, if Scott later decides, well, he wants to retract what he's saying, well, this isn't Fuhrman's fault. He signed this. He shouldn't have signed it if he didn't really mean what he was signing. This just goes to show how completely off base you are accusing Fuhrman of a fake testimony when you have no clue what's really going on. But yet you have no problem putting a video out there as if you do, maybe because you enjoy the clickbait views.
Scott has written a number of times that he could only tolerate Dr. Fuhrman's detox for 5 out of the recommended 6 weeks.
Okay, so he can only tolerate the detox 5 out of 6 weeks, but that has nothing to do with what he did the next 6 years leading up to him signing that document.
Dr. Fuhrman's detox was unsustainable for Scott, so he says he stopped after the 5th week. He wrote about the detox. When that ended for us, we went right back to our old habits of takeout and delivery. So Scott resumed his old diet and didn't start his weight loss program for another 4 months. And he tells the story of the guy who built his bike and how this guy played a key role in getting Scott to start his diet. I'm going to put a link to this 7-page article from 2008, which is written by Scott and his wife, where they describe Scott's weight loss journey in great detail. Scott mentions Dr. Fuhrman only once in all of these 7 pages in this paragraph here, talking about his 5-week detox experience. But he doesn't mention Dr. Fuhrman anywhere else except when he's talking about the aborted detox.
Never mind that this was 2008, 3 years before Scott signed that 2011 consent, and 3 years after you say he stopped eating the nutritarian diet. But let's also look at this. I am going to do the following. Every morning I eat a banana with a bowl of vegan soup or a small salad with some kind of light dressing. For lunch, my homemade hummus with a piece of whole wheat pita and something like sprouts, tomatoes, or mushrooms. Dinner, a huge salad and a small amount of homemade pasta, tons of water. You know, this sounds like something he might have learned from Fuhrman. It also says, if I need a snack, it'll be a few nuts. Well, that sounds like something Fuhrman would say. Maybe some fresh fruit, organic, naturally sweetened granola bar. I mean, he might have learned a lot from Fuhrman there. So while he may have only mentioned Fuhrman once, and literally said in the context of mentioning Fuhrman, this book turned everything around for me and us, but he also said a lot of things that are very nutritarian.
We never hear Dr. Fuhrman mention a word about the fact that Scott was eating between 1,000 and 1,200 calories, or that he was riding a bike 30 to 50 miles every day.
What is your point in mentioning that we never hear Fuhrman talk about how many calories somebody is eating? We already know that there's only 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates and protein, whereas fat has 9 calories per gram. So if you're going to eat a low-fat, high-carb diet, you're probably not going to consume as many calories if you're still eating the same volume of food. So it's kind of just goes without saying that you're going to eat less calories. This is just inherent in going plant-based. When you're trying to get people to eat beans, greens, grains, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, and herbs and spices, you're just trying to get them to eat all those healthy foods whenever they're hungry, and you literally don't have to count calories anymore. You just eat until you're full, and some even say eat until you're not quite full. Who cares how many calories? As for the bike, we already saw that the bike riding was mentioned in his book. There's no need to mention it somewhere else where they're talking about food, not exercise.
So the 6th document Dr. Fuhrman offers is a screenshot of Dr. Fuhrman's blog in which that article about Scott was posted. Now, nowhere on this page is Scott quoted as saying he followed a nutritarian diet. He also does not use the words nutritional excellence or high nutrient meal plan.
It doesn't really matter that he didn't use those particular words in 2011, when he's clearly saying in his quest he discovered Eat to Live, which is a book by Dr. Fuhrman, and decided to commit to it. Dr. Fuhrman's teachings dovetailed perfectly into his plans to totally restructure his life. He found peace in doing simple things like cooking, biking, taking care of himself, and taking care of family. And by 2009, he had lost 333 pounds and got his health and life back. So what if he's not using those specific keywords? He's still acknowledging that he got a lot out of Dr. Fuhrman's teachings.
Dr. Fuhrman could have made a video which was 16 seconds.
And instead of you making a bunch of 20-plus minute worthless videos, you could have been making videos that are actually going after doctors who are prescribing medications that have harmful side effects and don't treat the underlying cause, doctors who aren't prescribing lifestyle changes, doctors who promote keto or paleo or carnivore diet. You could have been doing so many other things, but you're wasting all this time throwing him under the bus and Dr. Joel Kahn and Dr. Greger and all these people. Why? Why are you doing this? Do something useful. Focus on Chris Kresser or Sean Baker.
Rather than 16 minutes long, if he had actual proof that Scott followed his diet.
No doctor has actual proof that anyone's following anything unless they're following them around with a dookie bag to analyze their feces or locking them in a closet and force feeding them. So you have these really absurd expectations of Dr. Joel Fuhrman here. Are you suggesting that none of these doctors even attempt to try to get testimonies from their clients? We know it's anecdotal, which only carries so much weight because of its potential flaws.
Dr. Fuhrman gave us 6 other documents that tell us 0 about what Scott ate. As Dr. Fuhrman explains in his most recent research article, the nutritarian diet guidelines are as follows: 1/2 pound each of raw and cooked vegetables daily, mushrooms and allium vegetables daily, at least 1 cup of legumes per day, 1 to 2 ounces of nuts and seeds per day, including high omega-3 varieties, 3 to 4 servings of fresh and or frozen fruit daily, limit grains and starchy vegetables to 1 serving per day, avoid added oils. Well, Scott didn't eat this way.
Man, there's something crazy going on with you. The very things that Dr. Fuhrman calls the nutritarian diet that you just shared with us are the same things that Scott wrote in that article. It's like the same thing. And you're saying,
well, Scott didn't eat this way. In addition, Dr. Fuhrman emphasizes that a nutritarian diet does not involve cutting calories, especially if you're trying to lose weight.
If someone says you have to cut calories, this implies you have to count your calories in order to cut the calories. But as Fuhrman is about to say, which you're about to show him saying, he never says anything about cutting calories. He says you can eat until you're full. You don't have to restrict your caloric intake, so there's no counting or cutting of calories.
Here he is in his PBS special, The End of Dieting.
Most diets have you restrict calories, struggle to eat less, or recommend some ratio of fat, carbohydrate, or protein that they claim will help you lose weight. Let's look at these concepts, because they're the problem, not the solution. If you try to eat less, you get even less micronutrients in your tissues, which just drives you into an uncontrollable binge. That doesn't work, because our bodies are starving for those nutrients.
And this is an article from his website entitled Questions and Answers about the Nutritarian Diet. Question: do I have to count calories? Answer: not at all. You'll eat until you're satisfied all the time.
It's very common for plant-based doctors to say you don't have to count calories. As I've already stated, it's because you're eating a low-fat, high-carb diet. So you don't. You eat more to weigh less. That's what some doctors say. So it's not strange for Dr. Fuhrman to say it because it makes complete sense. So if Scott chose to waste time counting calories, that's not Fuhrman's fault. Who cares?
Scott's story has been consistent. He went on the detox. He went off the detox. He wrote in detail in 2008 about what he did. He designed his own diet. He also says,
He pulls them out of context and edits them to change the meaning.
now this is false. Why doesn't Dr. Fuhrman show me one example of what I'm supposedly doing?
So I just gave you a whole bunch of examples, and I've got more coming. When we did this video, we didn't have a lot of time. We just tried to throw it together in one day, and we really don't want to waste time doing this kind of thing because it truly is a grave waste of time. There was so many things that we really wanted to address regarding your horrible videos. We just did the best we could, the quickest we could. So now here I am doing exactly what I don't want to be doing. This is so time consuming and about something so childish and negative and nitpicky and off track from what really needs to be going on. I want to focus on positive, healthy things, but I don't like seeing you do this to such an awesome doctor. And Dr. Fuhrman doesn't have time for this sort of thing. I mean, he has a family, he has a clinic that he runs, he does presentations, writes books, does immersion camps. When I was visiting him to do that video, I mean, the man was everywhere. He was doing so many things, taking care of himself, taking care of others. There's just not enough time in the day to deal with petty, childish stuff like what you're doing. I'm taking my time out to do this when it's really the last thing I want to do. But I felt like it needed to be done so people could take time to see really what you're saying and how inconsistent and twisted it is.
He's not practiced medicine for 30 years and helped thousands to recover their health.
Doctors need to be held to a higher standard than most others because they occupy a privileged role in our society. When a doctor violates ethical guidelines, it's important to bring the behavior to light to avoid demeaning the medical profession and creating distrust between physicians and patients.
Colonel Beefeater was really actually a lot of fun, and he was very good for business in terms of views. And now I'm going to reveal the identity of Colonel Beefeater 20 years later.
All I'm saying is, don't trust Jeff Nelson because he's a cock.